Something like that. Hi, my name's Chris Bennis, and I come here wearing a couple of hats today at the invitation of Council Member Nicastro. First of all, as mentioned during the introduction, I am a board member and the former president of the Apartment Association of Seattle and King County, an association of 2,500 rental property owners throughout King County. Quite frankly, the majority of them are here in the city of Seattle. Second of all, I'm a landlord myself. I own a few rental houses. I'll tell you the truth, I've elected not to invest in the city of Seattle, and I've sold the few properties I have here because of what I consider personally to be an unfavorable regulatory climate. But I am a landlord. Finally, I am, as was mentioned, a real estate attorney. Steve and I are friendly adversaries from time to time, and I always appreciate the opportunity to be on the same panel with him. I have one introductory comment, which is that I recognize that the topic today is rent control, local control of rents. And I think it's important to recognize that there has been no specific proposal that has been brought forward. And for somebody to get up here and sort of punch at a vacuum is really, really tough. So what I'm going to be doing today is limiting my comments to a couple of things that are in the problems associated with rent control generally, because I don't have a specific policy proposal to respond to. I also think that when we're going to look at the housing situation in the city of Seattle, we need to always keep in mind the real statistical basis. Where are the rents going? What are the vacancy factors? That sort of thing. We always have anecdotal stories in any walk of life. But if we're going to make policy in this city for everybody, we have to look at the entire picture. An isolated, compelling story is not necessarily a justification for throwing away an entire way of doing business and providing housing in the city. As I was trying to prepare my comments today, I thought to myself, what are the issues that people are concerned about? Now, I've been here all day listening to all of the renters here, and I hope I've crystallized on a couple of things that are important to them as it relates to the local rent control issue. The first of them is incremental rent increases. The idea that rents go up 4%, 5%, 6%, but that rate of increase is at a factor that exceeds the consumer price index. So one of the things that we're looking at is trying to get a good 5-year baseline, 10-year trend line to figure out where rents are really going in the city. From our perspective, there are some definite increases in housing costs. They're right in line with, in general, in the aggregate, individuals' incomes, and so in general, while rents are increasing, they're primarily a function of increased expenses and that sort of thing. The second thing that I think that some of the renters here are concerned about is the idea of the substantial... Well, I think that some of the other things that some of the renters here are concerned about is substantial rent increases, where sometimes they get increased that it vastly isn't, let's put it this way, at least in double digits. I guess, yes, I guess what I would suggest there is that in most cases, what's triggering that increase is somebody who's investing in the housing of the city, improving the housing stock, and I'm really concerned about the possibility that we want to discourage people from investing and improving the rental housing that's available in the city of Seattle. Finally, the third thing that renters seem to be concerned about are low vacancy rates. The fact that you can go around town and look for an apartment and there's a big line out the door of other applicants that you're going to be competing with. Now, one would say that the people who are providing rental housing want there to be this scarcity. But the truth of the matter is that we are extremely interested in creating housing that's affordable to people. Unfortunately, there are many factors, and I can't go into them in the 1 minute I have available, that drive up housing costs, but I'll just mention a couple. In the period 1995 to 1998, City of Seattle's taken 35% of the job growth in King County while only providing 24% of the housing units. So we've got an imbalance there. Second of all, many neighborhoods in the city have become much more desirable places to live. When I was going to the University of Washington, I lived in Belltown, and it was a cheap, fun place to live, but it was a little scary, and it was nowhere near as desirable as is today. So when we're looking at the housing situation, we have to look at the positive things that are happening in the city. I only have a very limited amount of time available, but I want to just make a couple of brief comments about rent control generally. Number one, does it work? With all respect to Professor Keating, who we'll be hearing from next, apparently 93% of the economists in the United States disagree with that. Does it help people in need? According to Professor Keating's book, at least I read the thing from cover to cover the last couple nights, it doesn't really help the people that are most in need. The primary benefits go to middle and upper income tenants. So on behalf of the Apartment Association, I appreciate the opportunity that's been afforded me to engage in this dialogue. I will be interested to hear what the rest of the speakers say, and I want to make it clear to everybody that we are all trying to work together to provide the housing that people are interested in here in the city. Thank you.
See, on another panel, somebody was quoting a famous Roman, so with apologies to Shakespeare, I will paraphrase Mark Antony. I come to, not to bury rent control, but to praise it. Always glad that people read my books. Much has been written about rent control, including, I notice in today's Seattle Times, the editorial page, pretty much negative, and as for economists, it's certainly true that the vast majority of economists do not like rent control, but the vast majority of economists have rarely studied it. They start with preconceived notions. My background being in law and planning and having been involved in more than a few rent control campaigns, in about 4.5 minutes, let me try to dispel a few of the myths and point out what rent control can or cannot do, assuming you were allowed to even discuss the possibility of that here in the state of Washington. There is no rent control. There are many forms of rent control, depending upon what we're talking about, who proposed it, how it's structured, how it's enforced, if it's enforced. I think there's a lot to be said in situations like here in Seattle, that it's a policy that a city at least should consider and at times can be effective. We've had rent control in the United States over the last 30 years in many localities. Alas, I think it's unfortunate, but in a few states, California, Massachusetts, the state legislature has seen to fit to intervene to preempt certain forms of rent control, or in the case of Massachusetts, to eliminate altogether. So rather than waiting for rent control to happen, I take it here in Washington, the legislature in its wisdom prevented even the possibility of it occurring, whatever form it might take. If I had the time, and you can read my book, of course, you can read about the various ways rent control has been structured, but I think it's fair to say in most places in the last 30 years, it's allowed for regular rent increases, but not sharp rent increases. It, by law, has to guarantee landlords a fair return. It exempts a fair amount of housing, usually for good reason. It's temporary. It's usually tied to vacancy rates. It's not a permanent policy. And it does protect with rough justice tenants. It doesn't protect all tenants, and I certainly would not argue that it's a panacea to all the problems that renters face. On the other hand, it serves its purposes. Unlike some critics, it does not cause effects attributable to atomic blast or cancer or acid rain. So many overblown claims. I think when you look at the studies that are often cited, read the fine print. Who sponsored the study? Who paid for the study? Who paid the consultants who wrote it? Let's see, I think my time is running out, so I would urge you to consider such a policy, whatever it's called, but obviously the first issue here is to get your state government to allow you to even think about it or discuss it. Once you get beyond that, then you can, as in 1981, whatever money is spent back and forth on elections, you can then debate the pros and cons, and there's certainly a lot to debate about it. And I would be the first not to get up here and claim it's going to solve renters' problems in Seattle. It won't, but it could sure help a lot of tenants in situations like you face. So with that, I will end and save, 30 seconds for the next speaker. Thank you very much.
I'm Julie Monahan, a member of the Tenants Union, and I live in affordable housing in Belltown. And I want to thank Judy Nicastro for this opportunity to speak because, frankly, as a renter, I'm feeling a little worried, actually a lot more worried after being here today. Like so many Seattle tenants, even the well-paid ones, I never know what my rent is going to be from month to month. My situation is fairly stable now. I live in low-income housing in Belltown. But as my income grows, I probably won't be eligible forever for this housing. And then I ask myself, well, what happens to me then? Can I afford to continue to live here and contribute to my community? Will I move from building to building, swooning from one huge rent increase after another? I have to admit, these are all new questions to me. As a newcomer to this city a year and a half ago, before that, I lived for 5 years in a rent-stabilized apartment in New York City. And I'd like to share that experience because of the many misconceptions about rent stabilization. The system in New York certainly has its problems, no doubt about it, but the system definitely worked for me. And it provided me with the stability of knowing where I'd be living from year to year. I had leases that I signed every year. I had an option to sign a 2-year lease at a slightly higher rent increase. It let me establish strong roots in my community. I was very active as a volunteer. Here in Seattle, I work in my local pea patch, and I'm nervous that climbing Belltown rents will eventually price me out. I don't have a car, so it would be pretty hard to maintain that commitment. I think rent stabilization in New York is still a system that works for property owners. Regulations allow my landlord to increase rents following capital improvements such as kitchen renovations, new storm windows. And again, it certainly works for tenants. In my building, there were struggling young professionals and those nearing a living in retirement. And long-term roots made most of us vigilant to the building's problems and well-being. Also, in my experience, rent stabilized does not mean stagnant. My rent went up every year following an annual review of inflation and building costs. But these increases were reasonable, manageable, and fair. My experience also undermines the false belief that rent control creates decrepit apartments landlords refuse to repair. In general, my superintendent responded very quickly to repair requests. A cracked window, a leaky ceiling, a broken toilet seat. If he had not, he could file a complaint with a city agency, and that agency would then send a letter, which was usually enough to resolve the problem. If a landlord refused to make the repair or did not make the repair, the agency would compile these letters of complaints, and if the landlord then went to the agency and said, well, I did these capital improvements, I want a rent increase, they'll say, well, we've got this folder. Especially neglectful landlords might actually see rents go down. I might also add that even with rent stabilization, New York City is currently enjoying a housing construction boom that includes affordable housing. This system finally works for the stability of neighborhoods. It preserves a sense of community. High rents in other buildings near where I lived often caused high turnover, which, as many landlords know, increases the stress and wear and tear on a building. Long-term residents mean long-term care for buildings and safer neighborhoods. Here's my emotional part that Judy has asked me to keep out, so I will. I want to say that even households in Seattle that are pulling in $75,000, $100,000 a year struggle with the ballooning rents here. Clearly, such an extreme situation requires regulatory relief, and Seattle needs a system that honors the special role that housing plays in any city that seeks to maintain its diversity, its vibrancy, and its community. I believe that rent is more than a line item in someone's portfolio. It's someone else's dignity, someone's life, someone's home. Thank you.
My name is Jody Haug, and I'm a landlord, but sort of a mini landlord. My house in Ballard was built in 1890, and rather than sell it and have it torn down to have a parking lot, which I told the guy would only happen over my dead body, I rent out the top 2 floors, and my husband and I live in the basement. The rents, one of the things about being 64 is it appalls you what rents are, and every time I raise the rent, I think, my God, that's a lot of money. But whenever I do get new tenants, the first 3 people who see it all want it, so I don't think I'm doing too badly. I also, this is my income. And another thing I wanted to mention is that I am a member of a voluntary simplicity study circle, so that a lot of my financial choices have been pared down to what's really important to me. And I think that has bearing on my views of the situation. I think one of the things that renters and landlords and landladies are up against is the current kind of bottom line mentality of our culture and a good portion of the world. It's really too bad that right now the thing that matters the most is how much money you can get. I think it's appalling that we really feel that we own this piece of property and we can do anything we want to with it as long as it's legal. And I think that a lot of our legal structures haven't really caught up with this shift, because in times past, it was assumed, and rightly so, that the first thing you thought about was the well-being of your community. I mean, what good does it do me to have my piece of property a certain way if everything around it isn't what I want? Then it becomes not a place that I want to be either. So, so I think that one of the things we need to look at is that every one of us, whether we're a renter or a landowner or a landlord, needs to look at this view of the world and decide that it doesn't work and that we are not going to buy into it, because if enough of us feel it doesn't work, it loses its power. The next thing I want to talk about is enfranchisement. For too long in our culture, it has been so that if you didn't own the place, you didn't count. Now, I know that this has been not so good for renters, but it has also let you off the hook. As the chair of the planning committee for the Ballard District Council, the stewardship group for our neighborhood plan, I want to feel that the 52% of the people in this city who vote have a responsibility to participate in their community. We need you. We've got to have you. There's a lot of work to be done out there. The government can't do it all. The people who theoretically at least own the land can't do it all. You are a vital part of our community. And I don't think we should let you off the hook, and I don't think you should fink out on us either. And I know that there are renters who are involved, but there are an awful lot of you who go in your apartment door and close the door and don't feel connected. I think that one of the hallmarks of the success of neighborhood planning is going to be when someone moves, they won't dream of moving out of their neighborhood, because that's where they live. So, register to vote, vote, find out who's doing your neighborhood planning, tutor kids at school, give to the food banks, do things, lots of things, whatever grabs you to become involved in your community. Because all of this helps not only you to be involved, but it also lets the people in your community.
I was almost falling asleep over here. Next time I know to bring some people to plant some questions in the audience. I love this city. This city is full of amazing, talented people, and we should all want to come together and work together to create a city that has never been seen in the history of the world. And I think we can do that. We've got the talent here. We've got the resources here, natural and otherwise, financial resources, and we should come together to make that happen. My platform is to focus on transportation, education, and the economy by partnering. We can't do it alone. Again, I'm going to say this until I'm blue in the face, if you can see the blueness in my face. We cannot do this by ourselves. We have to work with one another. My position on working together as an example in government is to reduce our healthcare costs by partnering with every city in the state of Washington, all the counties and the state, to create one healthcare plan that offers choice for all of our governmental employees. It'll reduce our healthcare costs that have gone up 40% just for this city in the last 4 years. So Sigler for Seattle, I appreciate you checking out my campaign, learning more about who I am. I won't let you down. Thanks.
Greg Nichols, your final statement.
Thank you, Ross. And before I start, I wanted to correct one thing. You had asked Councilmember Drago earlier about the housing levy, and you said that she had voted for a sales tax increase. The housing levy is not a sales tax; it is a property tax.
Thanks for
It
the
doesn't have
correction.
anything to do. So it's again a pleasure to be here with you this evening. I think that the question that we all need to be thinking about as we decide who is going to lead the city for the next 4 years is how are we going to make the difficult decisions that need to be made to move our city forward? And there are difficult decisions. We had a couple of candidates talk about the Seattle process and how that doesn't work. Well, Seattle is not a broken city. Seattle is a city that people want to live in, that great companies call home and start here. And our challenge is the challenge of dealing with success. How do we have affordable housing when so many people want to live here and are willing to pay for that housing in order to do so? How do we make sure we have a transportation system that allows people to get around when we have a lot of jobs and a lot of people jockeying for that space? How do we make sure that we are a safe city and that we have great schools? I have a track record of 8 years of showing that I am willing to make those hard decisions even when they're not popular. That's what we're going to need, is to create a great deliberative plan for our city and have the courage to carry it out.
Mike McGinn, your final statement. 1 minute, please.
Thank you. First, a clarification. When asked whether I wanted to take over the school system, I couldn't bear to hold up that negative term, waffle. But I do believe that we should look seriously at taking over, having direct mail responsibility for the school system, because I believe we have a system on schools right now where we don't really hold anyone accountable, nor do we hold each other accountable. So if we don't make progress, we should look at that for accountability reasons. And this is a theme that I think goes through all the work I've done. When I worked in my neighborhood of Greenwood, I worked to hold the whole community accountable to the type of new development we got. It's not government versus the community. It's how do we work together to get what we want. In the Sierra Club, when we fought roads and transit, was how do we hold ourselves accountable to our goals to reduce global warming pollution and build the future we want. And that was the thesis behind, that was why I founded Great City. How do we hold each other accountable to this vision we have of a city that we all want to live in? And I want to take that same attitude towards mayor. I want to tap into the creativity, compassion, and intelligence of the people in the community. And let's hold ourselves accountable to build that city we believe in.
Joe Millihan.
The Seattle Times actually quoted one of the incumbents, and not the mayor, as stating, the whole strategy is to block Malahan. I couldn't be more flattered. I am a threat to the status quo. I have 5 Democratic organization endorsements within the city of Seattle. I am the only candidate on the Diaz to have obtained the rating of outstanding, the only candidate, the rating of outstanding from the Municipal League. I got to tell you, I respect that organization. I'm a lifetime Democrat. I'm a progressive, but I'm also a pragmatic manager. My goal is to run the city more efficiently so that we can take care of people, take care of the environment, and I think Seattle will agree. Thanks for your time today.
Jen Drago.
Well, different leadership styles produce different results. And I'd like to use my leadership style and skills to restore the confidence and trust of the citizens, the neighborhoods, our elected regional and state leaders in city government. Elections are about the future. We have not heard a lot about the future in this campaign. I did share my vision with you, and I invite you to pick up this book as you leave the room. It's called A Blueprint for Our Future. So I shared the big picture, and this speaks about many small steps that we can take for a better future in Seattle. So I invite you to join with me to build a better future for all of Seattle.
James Donaldson, your final statement.
Thank you. Thank you, City Club, for the invite and the opportunity to participate in tonight's gathering. Hey, this is about change and leadership. It's about moving us forward into a great future that lies ahead of us. It's not about talking until I'm blue in the face. It's not about talking and getting away from the Seattle way. We need to change the way we are. It's not about, being heavy laden in endorsements, because I am beholden to no one. I come in here and I want to work for the all-American city of Seattle and the taxpayers who live here. It's not about style, it's about substance. It's about really doing the best job possible. I will recruit citywide, regional-wide, for the best people available. There are folks in this room that will be on my A team. There are candidates along the candidates trail I've met who will be on my A team. We will put together the best team possible and move us forward to the greatest future we could possibly have. Thank you.
And my thanks to all the candidates for being really good sports tonight. My thanks to the audience for good questions. This has been a most productive evening. It is now my pleasure to introduce my boss, the editorial page editor of the Seattle Times, Ryan Blethyn.
Well, don't have to raise this as high as you would, but just a little bit. I want to thank everybody for coming out. I think I was inside most of the day. I think it was kind of cloudy, but it kind of cleared up here at the end of the day. So I know it's not easy to always be in here, but this is an important job, one of the most important jobs in the region. When I say the region, just not the Puget Sound, but the Pacific Northwest. So it's encouraging to see looks like a full house here tonight. And I want to thank the candidates. It was lively and entertaining, and I hope illuminating for all the voters. I also want to thank Joni and Ross. You guys did an excellent job as always. And we did the City Club, we did a debate with City Club last week for county exec, and this is our second one this year with them for mayor. It's been a great partnership, and probably hope to continue that. And this is the primary, so we'll probably get another crack at least two of you. Come the general. Yeah.
I think that's a maximum. Also.
Yeah, it is. So, unless of course everybody just falls by the wayside and drops out, but I highly doubt that. But anyway, I'm just not going to waste any more of your time because it's still light out and you can still go enjoy yourselves. So I just want to thank you all for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
These kids was to make it real, to really use. So you have to write a letter. You have to learn how to do a salutation. Well, let's write a real letter to our senator asking him for something that we want, or let's get outside of the classroom. And so you're absolutely right. I think that our education system is based on over 100 years ago a model that was agrarian, that was factory worker style, where kids are sitting at desks. And if you look at most classrooms, they might have whiteboards with dry erase markers, but they're pretty similar to the blackboards of the one-room schoolhouse. And so I think what Islandwood is doing with experiential education, with hands-on, real, and it's true with our graduate students too. They are not sitting in a classroom at an ivory tower listening to a professor. They're actually in the field learning by doing. And there are a lot of sayings that I really believe in, that if you show me, I'm not going to remember it. If I hear it, but if I do it, I'm going to remember it forever.
Does that lead you to think about Islandwood actually becoming a school in a sense of? I mean, it is in a informal way already a school, right. But in terms of actually seeking the formal accreditation or whatever is required.
Well, when you pull up, it says Islandwood, a school in the woods. So we already kind of think of ourselves as a school. I don't think we're going to get accreditation and be a former school with the same students each week because there's such a need. So it's really nice. I mean, we're serving over 60 schools right now. And I think it's important to have this, the way that I'm thinking about it is that we're a model. And that when teachers and kids come, they get a taste of what can be, and that teachers are reminded of what they can be doing in their classrooms. And even though they don't have the ability to walk on 255 acres, or they can't go to a tree house in their schoolyard, or a big bridge over a ravine, or a floating classroom, which is our bridge, they still can do experiences in their classroom. They can do what I did when I was a teacher, like climb on their roof with parachutes that the kids have made and see which ones crash on the way down and which ones. So they could, they can make it really.
Was it kids attached to the parachutes?
No, no. They were eggs attached to it. It's kind of a neat experiment that a lot of teachers will do. You use regular household supplies to make a parachute, and you cradle an egg in it, and you can do whatever you want to save the egg, and you throw it from a height. To really talk about how experiential it was going to be, we were going to drop them from a helicopter. And a friend of mine was a pilot in the Army, the Army helicopter. And it turned out it was so windy he couldn't do it that day. And so here I am on the roof throwing these parachutes off. But some of the eggs made it, some of them didn't.
So you spent how many years with Teach for America?
I was with TFA for 5 years. 2 years in Louisiana teaching with the Corps, and then I went to New York and was on their national staff. Ended by being their development director, fundraising for them. And it was an interesting time because it was, we used to say we were building the plane as we flew it. It was young.
How did you get drawn to teaching in the first place? What was your path to TFA?
I was maybe not the most mature of kids. When I was graduating from college, I had never heard of even iBanking or consulting. I didn't know what any of these things were. I didn't go to any of the on-campus recruiters. And I was planning on traveling and working my way around the world. And I applied to one thing. My mom sent me a little, it must have been 50 words in Time magazine, a little article that just said that Teach for America was getting started, because it got started during my senior year. And so I applied for it.
Senior year in college.
Yeah, I was a junior when it got started. I was in the second year of the program. So there was this little blurb saying, here's this thing. And I decided to apply almost on a whim. I knew I wanted to be, at the time, a professor. And so I wanted to experience teaching. I knew I wanted to give something back to my own country. And so I went and did it, and did not know what I was getting into.
What about, where did those two things come from? The idea that you wanted to be a professor and the idea that you wanted to give something back to your country?
Well, the giving back piece is definitely something that, and I know you're big on mentors, and one of the ones I'd have to name was my parents. We had a child living with us that was from, I grew up in Minnesota, and this child was from inner city Watts, LA, living with us through a program called A Better Chance. So he was actually like my brother. He was a year older than he lived with us for 3 years to go to high school. When I was growing up, my parents were always very active in the community, and they weren't educators in the system, but they were very involved, and I think at an early age I learned to give back. As far as education, I think that that's just something that grew on me through my studies and the people I met. The people that most touched me while I were in college, or that most impacted me, were a couple of professors, one in particular at the University of Minnesota, that really challenged me and pushed me and turned me on to that as a career. Of course, I didn't end up there. I didn't end up working at a university.
What field did you think you were going to become a professor in?
Social psychology, which is how groups of people think.
What was attractive to you about that field?
The thing that excites me about psychology is just that, and social psychology in particular, is that we are social animals, you and I, and we behave differently if we're in a room of 100 people than if we're alone. If you're nervous for a sporting event and you've practiced a lot, that can be a really good thing for you. If you're nervous for a sporting event and you stink at it, then it's a really bad thing and your performance is worse. And so the way that our mind works is very much related on what's going on around us and who is around us, and that just fascinated me.
Now, obviously, that became a very applied set of lessons once you were teaching in Teach for America. Was it New Orleans or Baton Rouge? Where were you?
I was in Baton Rouge proper, working with kids that were both rural and inner city.
Once you left there and then you went to Teach for America headquarters, what was your path after that, after you left Teach for America?
After New York, I went to grad school and I got 2 master's degrees. I got a master's in education and an MBA. It's kind of a good sign of what my wife calls my split personality and what I like to call my hybrid personality. But I have both a business and an education side, and at grad school I studied both.
What are the origins of the business side, and how had that expressed itself up to that point?
You know, the origins of the business side were
down the aisle. So that's the way that's going to go, and I pass it off to you.
We're going to begin with opening statements, and we'd like each of you to tell us what is the single issue that drew you to the race. And we'll begin with you, Norman Sigler.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Norman Sigler. I'll start with answering that question. The single issue that drew me to this race was fresh leadership. We need fresh leadership in the city. We need leadership that's forward-looking and not looking back over the issues in the past. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm 42 years old. I moved to Seattle 6 years ago as a manager of maintenance, finance, and contracts at Alaska Airlines. I worked there for several years and then decided to move back into my passion, which is recruiting, bringing people together with great corporate opportunities. And my matchmaking is bringing people together with great people. So fresh leadership is why I'm in the race, and I'm looking forward to telling you more about my outlines for the city of the future, Seattle. Thanks.
Greg Nichols, in 45 seconds, tell us the single issue that brought you to this race.
Well, thank you, Russ, and thank you to City Club for bringing us all together on this beautiful evening. It is a pleasure to be with you. The last 8 years, I've been just extraordinarily honored to serve as mayor of this city that has such strong progressive values and a progressive tradition. And it has been my pleasure to be able to put those values into action, leading the effort to renew the Seattle Housing Levy, leading the effort to renew the Family and Education Levy, leading the effort to build light rail, which we opened up last Saturday, making sure that we took care of people who were without. We've built a great record of accomplishment together. It is my hope in the next 4 years that we build upon that and take the city even further forward.
Mike McGinn, what single issue brought you to the race?
I think what we've seen is that we face really tough economic times. We already know we face extraordinary environmental and social challenges already too. And what drew me to the race is I don't believe we can just keep doing what we've been doing and hope everything works out. These changes are not, bumps in the road. These are, a world economy is changing around us, and we have to transform as well. That means we have to make really smart choices about what we invest in, and I've laid those out in my platform. We have to make pretty smart choices about what we don't spend money on as well. We have to figure out how to tap into the talent and creativity and intelligence of all the people in Seattle so that we can hit those multiple goals of having a city that thrives economically, that's fair to everyone, and meets our environmental ideals.
Joe Malahan, the single issue that brought you to the race.
Well, first I want to say Norm Sigler brought Jan and I together. We're still working that one out. My name's Joe Malahan. I'm running.
To appreciate the glory of these animals in the wild. I think it's our responsibility to give these experiences to children. There are many children who will never see a bear in the wild or a wolf in the wild, but the closest they might come is at our zoo. And they're going to see these animals, and it's going to change their lives forever. And that's where we've got to get. That's where we have to go with this. And I would hope that these people would see the value of that.
You've been to Africa many times and seen animals in wild places, and you know what it takes for them to live and the big areas that they need. Yet you support a place that exhibits animals in a very confined way. How do you rationalize that in your mind? Because I know I've been there too.
Oh, yes. I know that people in this city are very appreciative of the fact that our animals are in such humane conditions. And because I know how well they're treated and how well they're cared for, that does help a lot. It also helps for me to know that we are not capturing animals from the wild anymore. Most of the stock that's in zoos now is just traded back and among zoos. So we're not taking the animals out of the world, but we're using these animals to learn more. If we didn't have these animals in captivity, we wouldn't be able to learn the things we're learning now about the animals in the wild. Because of the work we're doing with snow leopards, for instance, we can learn so much about the elusive snow leopard in his own country. People can't find snow leopards in the wild, but because of our DNA technology, we can map those snow leopards and we can find out about the genetic makeup of all the snow leopards in the world. We can, because of the animals in captivity, we can make sure that the genetic pools are pure. We don't interbreed the animals. they're in such good hands, and they are so valuable for their brothers and sisters in the wild. And so I'm very, very comfortable with what's going on in zoos.
If a family comes to the zoo and they spend all day walking around and they're ready to go home, what do you hope that they take home with them at the end of the day from spending a day at Woodland Park Zoo?
I hope they go home with just images of these beautiful creatures just playing in their heads for days afterwards. The sounds and just the sights. And I know that at our zoo they can see these animals in these settings that are just like they would be in the wild. And I think that I want to see people with visions of the animals in their heads, because it's just the adoration of this beauty that will make people appreciate what they really are.
What does Woodland Park Zoo mean personally to you?
It means for me the beginning of a new path in my life, because up to the point that I became involved with the Woodland Park Zoo, I didn't really have a focus. And at first I was hesitant to become involved with the zoo for the same reason that other people are hesitant to embrace the zoo idea. But once I did become involved, I realized the value of the place and the humanity of the place. And it has set me on a path that will probably fulfill my life's passion to the end. So it means a lot to me.
Got a favorite animal?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we don't have one here, but the okapi is my favorite animal. He's so incredibly rare. I do love the okapi. But I discovered this year, with the help of some people who are very into the Native American culture, that we probably all have a totem animal. And I discovered this year that my totem animal is definitely a zebra. He's just a common animal, but I love him so much. And so the zebra for me all my life has been one of my favorites.
Why so?
I don't know. I don't know. It's just, I think an animal gets in your soul. There's not necessarily a reason that he becomes your favorite, but he just touches your soul. They all do, but I think from a long time ago, the zebra was one of those.
So here's a real anthropomorphic question. If you could tell a zebra something and know that you could communicate to him for 15 seconds, what would you say?
Wow. I would say, I can't believe there are so many of you, and yet every one of you is so different. When you look into the crowd of you, your face is so different from the next guy. And you're so important. You know, I know you're food for those lions, and there are so many of you, but you're so vitally important. And you're so beautiful. And then I'd love to just give him a kiss on that nose.
Michael, do you have anything?
I guess back to the, you know, because when we want people to write a check, big, some of them very, very big checks.
Right.
So I guess, you know, another shot at if that person were across from you, you know, like a single donor, and
right.
You know, there is, you know, first it's an invasive process. There's other things in their lives. Everybody wants their money. There are $125 million could feed a lot of people for a long time.
Yeah.
Could house a lot of people. Could, you know, there's a lot of, you know, all that kind of stuff. And you know, you've talked about how all this is connected, and how, you know, in terms of how we look at our ethics and our values, as well as how everything is interdependent. I mean, how do you say, you know, how do you convince that person, yes, in light of all that, and this isn't going to fix it, the world will not be fixed with $125 million, but how do you convince them that this is absolutely the most important thing they could do with $125 million?
Well, I really got to get that one down.
And look at me, not him.
Yeah.
So your eyes will be right. But do your sales pitch.
I say, oh yeah, I need a sales pitch. I need a really good one. We have learned so much about how species can provide us with different things, with cures, with medicinal cures. Look at the destruction of the rainforest. We have no idea what's already been destroyed that may have been the perfect cure for Alzheimer's or cancer or whatever. We're continuing to learn so much through the scientific study of the animals and the animals in captivity that we've got to continue. We can learn so much more from them. I can't imagine a world without the wildlife. I can't imagine that there's a human being on Earth that can't appreciate the wildlife. And everybody in the world should be a part of helping to save them. It would be a very sad place indeed if we were all walking around with no animals.
So what? What if we locked up the Woodland Park Zoo tomorrow, got rid of all the animals, and walked away? So what?
What a sad thing for our children if they couldn't experience this and learn. Grow up having this appreciation for nature. Grow up having a respect for wild things. We may be the only people that will teach these children these things. Our society is so busy now. We don't take our kids out and look under rocks with them and tear apart a leaf to see what's inside. People are so busy now, they don't have that time for children, but we do. At the zoo, we are teaching them things that nobody else can teach them. We have to be there for them.
I would say that was pretty good. Great. I think we have it, Rosa.
And determine where that elephant came from. Determine the identity of that elephant so that if there is poaching going on and a piece of ivory comes through the circuit, they can tell whether that ivory was legally taken or whether it was poached. And it has huge implications for the black market trade. And that came right out of our zoo. Our very own Sam Wasser has developed that technology. It's astounding. So I think when you go to these people, these businessmen, and tell them about the technology that's being developed right here, you couldn't possibly close this place down because of the work that's going on there. So,
alrighty.
Used cars, think of used cars.
And anytime.
David, could you just give us a quick overview of the Zoo 21 campaign?
Well, the Zoo 21 campaign is basically to position the zoo for the next 100 years. We're going to be 100 years old in 1999. And I think it's only fitting, as I near the end of my tenure here at the zoo, that I leave it with a legacy of being well cared for the next 100 years and the next 4 or 5 generations of youngsters that are going to enjoy it.
There's many causes to give to, medical causes, starving children, and all of that. Why should corporations and business?
Dance and art. And we'll be doing bits and pieces solo. We'll do a little bit of dance, then we'll do a little bit of music, and then a little bit of art. And then we'll put it all back together again at the end, which is the same thing that we do in our Elements concert coming up next Thursday and Friday night. And that you'll have a chance to come and see that, see us in action. But today it's just for you guys, and let's start moving.
Okay, yeah, let's just take a spin around the circle and shout out your name, and maybe you'll catch 2 or 3 of them, or if you're good, you'll catch all of them. And just begin filling in a little bit of the dance element idea. We won't worry too much about it right away, more so to get you into movement. Okay, to start with, just give a little bit of a shake. Get your body just shake it. Shake, 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 shake. Let the head go. Shake, 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 shake. And take it into a run in place. Good job. Get the knees lifting higher, 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 higher. And then slow it down, slow it down. Slow motion run. Go through the whole body so it lifts and falls. side, calm everything on the outside, and we'll take a roll down from the head, starting with the head, the shoulders, let the knees bend, and then roll it up, all the way through the chest, so your chest goes to the ceiling, and then bring it to center. Good, so starting from the head, we'll take it on a 4 count, so we've got 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, coming up 5, 6, back to 7, up on 8, again, 2, shoulders, let the heels come down, spread the arms wide, but keep the body lifting up through the fountain coming up through the arms. And take a deep breath. Okay, good. Don't hold so much energy that you can't move. See if you can find how to keep your breath going and the body keep fluid through that. Okay, here we go for a swim. And forward and forward and forward. Ready for the backward and a back. Back, 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 back. Breaststroke and around. To the back, pull the arms around. To the back, pull them up and around. To the back. And around to the back. Then you got a swing, 3 other way and back, back, back. Music is like making a salad. You get a little tomatoes, and lettuce, and cheese, and sunflower seeds, and sprouts, and all these different things that have different colors and different tastes and different textures, and you put them all together. And so we brought a lot of different colors and tastes and textures with us today. And what I'd like initially for us to do is to each of us find 2 very different sounds somewhere in all this mess of possibilities of making sounds, not excluding your voice or the floor or whatever else you might find. When you find your 2 sounds, you can either find one instrument, which you can play 2 different ways, or you can find 2 different instruments. It doesn't matter. But think about, like you did a lot of different movements. You did some very slow movements. You did some very percussive movements. You moved low, you moved high, you moved wide, you moved skinny. There are the same kind of qualities you can find in music. So I'm not going to say too much more. I'm just going to give you just that, and let's see what you can come up with. The only parameter is that you find 2 very different sounds, and in what way they're different is up to you. So come and find anything's available, and then come back to the circle when you found it. What I'd like to do is to go around the circle real quickly and have everyone right after another sort of play a little bit of each of your sounds so that we get an idea of what we have available to us to put into our salad. Okay? Okay, so why don't we start right here. Let's hear your sounds, Heather. Let's be quiet so we can listen. some similarities, but we really are discovering we're getting a lot of different sounds. Okay, let's do the next one. Great. That's called improvisation. Okay, let's do next. Great. They're both things that rattle, but they're totally different. Okay, let's hear what you have.
Trying to prevent them from getting involved in gangs. But I would add a third piece to that, the third leg of the stool. And that is I would try to deal with the actual gang members that are on the streets with the guns, causing the violence, doing the killings, the shootings, and the drive-bys. And there's a new program, or there's a program that's being used in several major cities in the United States very successfully. It's called Ceasefire. And we had speakers come to the city just recently to talk about it. It's a massive intervention program. You identify the gangs, you identify the gang members, you bring together the community, law enforcement, families, and victims, and you do an intervention, one gang member at a time. And they're told they can make one phone call to get help, and they would know what that help and service was available to them. Then they're told if any member of their gang kills somebody, law enforcement will come down totally and completely on that entire gang. And that is working effectively in other cities in the United States, and we need to try it too.
Thank you. Okay, another question?
Hi, my name is Jane Freitag Kuntz. I'm a nurse with over 30 years of experience in public health and maternal infant health, and I'm concerned about the lack of infrastructure and financial support for social and health services. So I'd aim my question at Mr. Donaldson. What would you do to provide sustainable funding for social and health services?
One thing I would do, Jane, thank you for the question, is to really understand the exact need that's out there. I think a lot of our social service agencies that are out there, we have sometimes little to no idea exactly how efficient they are with the monies that they are being provided by the city or by the government. And so we need to make sure that through an audit review, their performance audits, that the performance is at a level that's acceptable, they're meeting the criteria, and then to make sure that we budget accordingly for that. I'm a big believer in making sure that we take care of those amongst us who have difficulty taking care of themselves. Everyone in this room is very, very privileged to be here. We've worked long and hard to get to these points in our lives, but there are a lot of folks outside this room who are really in need of various basic services, living day to day, trying to just get through to the next meal. Our city has a responsibility. Each and every one of us have a responsibility to make sure that those folks are taken care of. As mayor, my main responsibility would be to make sure that we budget accordingly and we stay right with the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question.
Another question. Right here. Oh, right here. Thank you. We hear the words neighborhood and community used very often, very positive words. And in this recent real estate bubble we've had, we've seen many new developments of different types. The 24 or so high-rise condominiums in downtown Seattle, the complete redevelopment and mixed use in Northgate, and then you see the many townhomes, or some people call it town blight, mushrooming up throughout the city. What do you see as positive developments that you would like to see continue, and what do you see as just part of this bubble that maybe we should start to restrict? I would direct this to both Mr. McGinn and Mr. Donaldson. Thank you.
You know, it's undeniable that if we continue to be a job-producing center, which we want to be, more people will move here. And a lot of these folks are people that will be our friends, neighbors, or they may be our families as well. So we have to figure out how to provide a mix of housing types for the people that want to move here. We've had some good examples of building in this town, and we have a lot of bad ones. But we don't need to focus just on the buildings. I think a key thing is that that's what we focus too much on. And by the way, I would just rewrite the whole multifamily code, and I think we really do take a look at how we do apartment buildings. We tend to produce things that are similar and not very nice. But I think we need to expand the discussion to talk about How do we invest in the parks and open space, the great local transit, the streetscapes, the investments in schools that make a community that the buildings fit into? And I think we focus a little too much time on the buildings and the new people and the new housing, and not on how to create a great neighborhood. That's one of the reasons I was so proud to support the Parks Levy last year. One of the reasons I support great local transit, because if you do all those things right, I think we'll find that we'll have a lot stronger neighborhoods.
We have time for just one more long question or two real short ones, so we'll see how it goes.
Right here? I think he asked that of.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Please proceed.
Barring any kind of catastrophic event, people will continue moving to Seattle and to our greater Northwest. It's projected that we'll have 1.2 million people over the next 20 years moving to our Puget Sound area. We need to really be smart and intelligent and collaborative with our neighbors and communities in how we're going to house them and feed them and employ them. My ideal is to take a look at each and every one of our neighborhoods around Seattle. They're all distinct. They all have their neighborhood charm and their historical aspects to them that make them who they are. And so we need to make sure we take that in consideration. The city needs to have a listening ear and an open mind to how to build according to what a neighborhood already looks like, but also build for the projected growth that we will have. Build aesthetically pleasing buildings that don't become a blight on the neighborhood, that look great, that house more people in an efficient manner.
Okay, time for one question for one person, and then we will let the candidates do their closing statements.
We have one more question here. I'm sorry, did we have time for one more?
I think for just one quick question to one person, yes.
Hi, Chuck Wolf. I'm a land use and environmental lawyer in town. Councilman Drago, you've sort of championed the notion of regionalism and looking beyond Seattle.
Can you speak louder?
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Drago, you've championed the notion of regionalism, and the ability to look beyond Seattle boundaries, work with those outside of our city limits, and you haven't had a chance to talk much about that today, so I wonder if you'd take the opportunity.
Real tight.
Okay. If I'm elected mayor on November 3rd, the first thing I will do on November 4th is convene a King County summit of elected local and state leaders to put together a legislative agenda for the 2010 legislative session, items that we can work together with.
Okay. It's time for you to close the deal with these voters. 60 seconds for your final statements. We'll begin with you, Norman Sigler.
Combine them and come up with a flag. Or this is always fun to play with. Can be wrapped up with yarn and tied in different ways. Just play. I mean, I'm not going to say what you have to do with it. Just suggestions, but I have scissors and.
Okay, and just keep in the back of your head that maybe this will give you some ideas about how to interpret your sculpture and movement, like whether it's a strong sculpture or not quite so strong, or whatever kind of sound comes from your sculpture, whatever. Just keep that in the back of your mind, but fill up the space. Start moving around. All right, Doc, pick up the energy and block out a little bit more for this. A little bit more energy. All right, fill up the space. Don't leave any big holes. Keep the eyes in the back of your head alive. You know, ready? Anybody? You're churning up the space. Other side. Other side. Other side. Back high. Keep going back but low. Forward high. Back low. Straight up. And forward through the space. Straight line. Sharp corners. Try backwards. Straight line, sharp corners. I don't see any rounded edges.